Ambassador Songday stood in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall. The massive space station held representatives from 847 different alien species. All of them were looking at him with the same expression. They wanted him gone. The hall was bigger than any building on Earth. Floating platforms held delegates from across the galaxy. Some breathed water and sat in clear tanks. Others were made of living crystal that clicked when they moved. A few looked almost human, but their eyes were too bright or their skin was the wrong color. Speaker Vexithera rose from the central platform. She was tall and thin, with purple skin that seemed to glow under the lights. Her 4 arms moved as she spoke, each gesture precise and cold. "The vote is complete," she announced. Her voice carried to every corner of the hall without any speakers. 846 species vote to exile Earth from galactic civilization. 1 species votes against. Songday felt his heart sink, even though he had expected this result. The 1 vote against was Earth itself. They were the only ones who wanted humans to stay. Vexithera continued reading from a crystal tablet. "The charges are clear. Humans have expanded too fast across the galaxy. They take resources without asking permission. They build weapons that are too powerful. Worst of all, they spread dangerous ideas to other species. The dangerous ideas were simple things. Humans believed that any species could improve their situation. They thought that the strong should help the weak instead of ruling them. They said that technology should be shared, not hoarded by the Council. Earth has 6 months, Vexithera said. All human activity outside the Sol system must stop. All human colonies must be abandoned. All human ships must return to Earth. After that, the Sol system will be sealed. No one goes in. No one comes out. Songday activated his communication device. The message would take hours to reach Earth, but Admiral Li Hyun needed to know immediately. He typed quickly. "Vote failed, 846 to 1. 6 months to full withdrawal, preparing for emergency protocols." The other delegates were already leaving. Some looked satisfied. Others seemed worried. A few species had been asking questions about the Council's rules lately. Humans weren't the only ones who thought things could be better. On Earth, Admiral Li Hyun received the message in his office at United Defense Command. He was a serious man with gray hair and tired eyes. 20 years of dealing with alien politics had worn him down, but he wasn't surprised by the news. He called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. Within an hour, the most important people on the planet were sitting around a table in a secure room deep underground. "They want us gone," Li Hyun said simply. 6 months to pack up everything and come home. Defense Minister Kim Tae leaned forward. She was younger than the Admiral, with sharp eyes and quick hands. "How many colonies do we have now?" 47. "Worlds with permanent settlements," answered Dr. Park Nari. She was the chief science officer, a small woman with a big brain. Plus, mining operations on 200 asteroids and moons. We're talking about moving 12 million people. "It's impossible," said Engineer Cho Yuna. She ran the shipbuilding program and knew exactly how many transport ships they had. "Even if we worked day and night, we couldn't move that many people in 6 months. We'd need 3 times as many ships." Li Hyun nodded grimly. "That's what they're counting on. They want to make it look like our fault when we can't meet their deadline." "So what do we do?" asked Kim Tae. Dr. Parknari cleared her throat. "There might be another option. Something I've been working on in secret." She activated a hologram. In the center of the table, it showed a strange-looking engine design, unlike anything the others had seen before. "For the past 5 years, I've been developing an alternative to their jump gate system," she explained. "We've always had to use their gates to travel between stars. It made us dependent on them, but this could change everything." The engine looked dangerous. It had too many sharp edges and glowing parts. Li Hyun studied it carefully. "Does it work?" he asked. The small-scale tests have been successful, Dr. Park Nari said. But I've never tried it on a full-sized ship, and I've never tried to go as far as we would need to go. Where exactly would we go? Asked Cho Yuna. Dr. Park Nari changed the hologram to show a map of the galaxy. The Council controlled most of the spiral arms, where the stars were close together, and resources were plentiful, but there were other areas marked in red. These are the regions they call Dark Territory, she explained. The Council thinks they're too dangerous or too poor to bother with. But our scans show something different. There are resources there. Lots of them, and there's something else. She pointed to areas beyond the galaxy's edge. There are other places to go. The Council has never explored beyond the galactic barrier. They're afraid of what's out there. Li Hyun was quiet for a long time. The others waited. Finally, he spoke. You're talking about leaving everything behind. Not just the colonies, but the entire galaxy. Yes, Dr. Park Nari said. Complete independence. No more council rules, no more asking permission. We go somewhere they can't follow and build something better. Kim Tae smiled for the first time since the meeting started. I like it. They want us gone? Fine. We'll go so far they'll never see us again. It's incredibly risky, warned Cho Yuna. If the drive system fails in deep space, everyone dies. If we stay here and try to follow their rules, we die slowly, Li Hyun replied. At least this way we die on our own terms. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of the city. Millions of people going about their lives, not knowing that their world was about to change forever. How long would you need to prepare? He asked Dr. Park Nari. 4 months to build enough drives for the first wave of ships. 6 months for a full evacuation. That's cutting it close. We don't have to tell them what we're really doing, Kim Tae pointed out. Let them think we're scrambling to meet their deadline. Meanwhile, we prepare for something they'll never expect. Li Hyun made his decision. Do it. Start building the drives. Cho Yuna, I want construction plans for the biggest transport ships you can design. Kim Tae, start identifying which colonies we evacuate first. Dr. Park Nari nodded. What about the Council? They'll be watching us. Let them watch, Li Hyun said. By the time they understand what we're doing, it'll be too late to stop us. 3 days later, Li Hyun stood before the cameras to address the world. People gathered in homes, offices, and public squares to hear what their leader would say about humanity's future. My fellow humans, he began. The galaxy has voted. They want us to leave. They think we're too dangerous, too unpredictable, too free. He paused, looking directly into the camera. They're right. We are dangerous to their system of control. We are unpredictable because we refuse to accept limits. We are free because we choose to be. His voice grew stronger. The galaxy has voted us out, so we'll find a better galaxy. We'll go where they can't follow and build something they can't imagine. We'll show them what humans can do when we're not held back by their rules. The speech lasted only 5 minutes, but it changed everything. Within hours, messages of support poured in from human colonies across the galaxy. The exile wasn't a punishment anymore. It was an opportunity. The galaxy wanted them gone. Humanity didn't wait to be told twice. 4 months had passed since the vote. The galaxy watched as humans scrambled to meet the Council's deadline. At least, that's what it looked like from the outside. Engineer Cho Yuna stood in the biggest shipyard humanity had ever built. It floated in space near Mars, hidden behind the red planet where Council spy ships couldn't see it. The construction was unlike anything humans had built before. Status report, she called out to her team. Hull Section 12 is complete, reported one of the workers. Installing the modular attachment points now. Cho Yuna smiled. The ships they were building weren't just transport vessels. They were designed to connect together like building blocks. A dozen small ships could link up to form one massive vessel. 100 ships could create a floating city. How many drives has Dr. Park Nari delivered? She asked. 57 so far. She says the next batch will be ready tomorrow. The drives were the key to everything. Dr. Parknari had moved her entire research team to a secret facility on the moon. They worked around the clock, building the engines that would carry humanity to freedom. Captain Kim Tae was testing one of those drives at that very moment. Her ship, the Explorer, was small and fast, perfect for the dangerous work of finding safe routes through space that no human had ever seen. "Beginning jump sequence," she announced to her crew. "Remember, if something goes wrong, hit the emergency beacon. Admiral Lee Hyun will send rescue ships." The drive powered up with a low humming sound. Space around the ship began to bend and twist in ways that hurt to look at. Then reality tore open like fabric, revealing a tunnel of swirling energy. The Explorer shot forward into the unknown. On the other side, Kim Tae found herself in a place the Council had marked as empty space. They were wrong. Her sensors detected 3 star systems rich with planets and resources. More importantly, there were no Council ships anywhere. "This is perfect," she whispered to herself. "They'll never think to look here." She marked the location and prepared to jump back. The return trip was easier now that she knew the way. Within hours, she was reporting to Admiral Lee Hyun. 17 successful jumps so far, she told him. "I've found safe routes to 7 different regions. All of them have everything we need to start new colonies." Lee Hyun studied the star maps she had brought back. "Any signs of other species?" "Some, but not Council members. These look like refugees, outcasts, maybe even other exiles. Most of them seem friendly enough." "Good. We'll need allies where we're going." The Admiral's office had become the command center for humanity's secret exodus. Screens showed the progress of construction, the status of colonial evacuations, and most importantly, the movement of Council spy ships. "They're getting suspicious," reported Intelligence Officer Song Dae. He had returned from the Council station the week before. "Speaker Vexithara keeps asking why our evacuation is proceeding so smoothly. She expected us to be panicking by now." "Let her wonder," Lee Hyun replied. "How much longer before we're ready?" "2 more months for the first wave," said Cho Yuna through the communication system. "We can evacuate the outer colonies first. They're the most exposed anyway." "And the people? How are they taking the news?" Song Dae answered that question. "Better than expected. The colony leaders understand what we're really doing. They're excited about it. Some of the outer settlements have already started dismantling their infrastructure. They want to take everything with them." That was the plan. Humanity wouldn't. Just abandon their colonies. They would take everything useful, machinery, computers, even entire buildings designed to be moved. The Council expected them to leave like defeated refugees. Instead, they would leave like an organized army. Dr. Parknari's voice crackled through the speakers. "Admiral, I need to report a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The good kind. The drives are working better than expected. Each jump is creating a permanent corridor through space. Other ships can follow the same route without needing their own drives." Lee Hyun sat up straighter. "Explain." "When we tear a hole in space-time, it doesn't close completely. It leaves a sort of scar that other ships can use. We're not just finding new places to go. We're building roads to get there. This changed everything. Humanity could create their own network of star routes, completely separate from the Council's jump gates. They would never be dependent on alien technology again." "How permanent are these corridors?" asked Kim Tae. "Unknown. Could be years. Could be forever. I need more time to study them." "You don't have more time," Lee Hyun reminded her. 2 months until the deadline. Then we'll study them after we're free." The weeks that followed were the busiest in human history. Every ship in the fleet was modified to carry more people and cargo. Entire factories were broken down and packed for transport. Even Earth's orbital stations were carefully dismantled and prepared for the journey. The Council kept watching, but they saw only what humans wanted them to see: Transport ships moving between colonies looked like normal evacuation procedures. The massive construction project near Mars was hidden behind sensor screens and careful positioning. Captain Kim Tae made 30 more scouting trips, each one revealed new wonders in the dark territories. She found worlds covered in crystal formations that could power entire cities. She discovered asteroid fields rich with metals that Earth had never seen. Most surprisingly, she encountered other species who had chosen exile over submission to the Council. "There's a whole civilization out there," she reported after one trip. "Species that left Council space centuries ago. They've built something amazing in the dark." "Friendly?" asked Lee Hyun. "Very. They call themselves the Free Worlds Alliance. They've been waiting for someone like us to join them." "Someone like us?" "Species that refuse to bow down to the Council. They say we're exactly what they've been hoping for." 2 weeks before the deadline, Cho Yuna reported that the first wave of ships was ready. 50 massive vessels, each capable of carrying 100,000 people and everything they needed to start new colonies. "The colony ships can link together to form temporary space cities," she explained. "Once we reach our destination, they can separate again and land on different worlds." Dr. Park Nari had installed her drives on every ship. More importantly, she had trained human engineers to build more drives once they reached their new home. "We'll never be trapped again," she promised. "Once we establish ourselves in the dark territories, we can explore even further. There are whole galaxies beyond this one." Admiral Lee Hyun called his senior staff together for one final meeting. Outside the windows of the command center, Earth looked peaceful and blue. Soon, most of humanity would be saying goodbye to their homeworld. "Status report," he said. "All outer colonies are ready for evacuation," reported Kim Tae. "The colonists are actually eager to leave. They see this as an adventure, not a punishment." "Ship construction is complete," added Cho Yuna. "We can move 8 million people in the first wave. The remaining 4 million will follow in the second wave. Jump routes are mapped and tested," said Dr. Park Nari. "We have safe passages to 7 different star clusters, enough room for humanity to spread out and grow. Intelligence reports that the Council still doesn't suspect our real plans," finished Songdae. "They think we're struggling to meet their deadline." Lee Hyun nodded. "Then we're ready. Tomorrow, we begin the exodus." He stood and walked to the window again. Earth had been humanity's home for hundreds of thousands of years. Now they were leaving it behind to find something better. "The Council wanted us gone," he said quietly. "They thought exile was a punishment. They don't understand that freedom is worth any price." The next morning, the first ships began their journey. Not toward Earth, as the Council expected, but toward the edge of known space. Captain Kim Tae led the way in the Explorer, followed by 50 massive colony ships carrying millions of humans and everything they needed to start over. As they approached the jump point, Songdae broadcast a message back to the Council station. Speaker Vexithara would receive it in a few hours. "Thank you for the vote," the message said. "You've given us exactly what we needed. A reason to leave and find something better. Don't bother looking for us. Where we're going, you can't follow." The ships disappeared into the corridors between realities, carrying humanity toward a future the galaxy couldn't imagine. 5 years had passed since humanity disappeared into the dark territories. The galaxy had moved on, or tried to. But Admiral Lee Hyun, now called Supreme Admiral by his people, knew the Council hadn't forgotten about them. He stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's new flagship. Through the massive windows he could see the Sanctuary System, humanity's new home. 7 planets orbited a stable star, each one more beautiful than anything they had left behind. "Status report," he called to his bridge crew. "New Busan colony. Reports full agricultural production," announced Communications Officer Park Minho. New Seoul shipyards have completed another batch of patrol vessels. New Incheon reports successful mining operations on 3 asteroids. Lee Hyun smiled. The names were human, but the achievements were beyond anything they had accomplished under Council rule. Free from alien restrictions, humanity had grown faster and stronger than anyone had imagined possible. Engineer Cho Yuna appeared on the main screen, calling from her shipyard in orbit around New Seoul. Behind her, massive construction projects stretched into space. "Admiral, the new fleet is ready for inspection," she reported. 200 vessels, all equipped with advanced drive systems. Dr. Park Nari's latest engines can tear holes in space that last for months. The ships were beautiful and terrible, sleek hulls covered with armor that seemed to drink in starlight. Weapons that could punch through any defense the Council possessed. Most importantly, they were completely independent of alien technology. "Any word from Captain Kim Tae?" Lee Hyun asked. "She's due back from the exploration mission today." "Park," Minho replied. "Long-range sensors detect her ship approaching the system." Kim Tae had been exploring the edges of human territory, making contact with other exile species and mapping new regions of space. Her reports had revealed a galaxy full of refugees and outcasts, all driven away by the Council's rigid rules. Hours. Later, Kim Tae materialized on the bridge through the transport system. She looked tired but excited. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said, activating a holographic display. The image showed a massive space station, bigger than anything humanity had built. But it wasn't Council technology. The design was rough and practical, built from salvaged parts and raw determination. "This is Haven Station," Kim Tae explained. "It's the center of something called the Free Worlds Alliance. Dozens of exile species have been building it for centuries." "How many species?" asked Lee Hyun. 47 so far, with more arriving every year. They've been waiting for someone like us to join them." "Someone like us?" "A species with military, strength, and advanced technology. Most of the exiles are peaceful people who just wanted to be left alone. But they know the Council won't leave them alone forever." Kim Tae changed the display to show intelligence reports. "The Council has been expanding their patrol routes. They're getting closer to exile territories. Some of the Free World's leaders think an invasion is coming." This was troubling news, but not unexpected. Lee Hyun had known this day would come. The Council couldn't tolerate the existence of successful alternatives to their rule. "What do the exile species want from us?" he asked. "Protection, leadership. They know we've built the strongest military force outside Council space. They want us to help them defend their freedom." Lee Hyun considered this carefully. Humanity had found peace in the dark territories, but peace, built on isolation, wouldn't last forever. "Set up a meeting with their leaders," he decided. "We'll hear what they have to say." Dr. Park Nari's voice interrupted from the laboratory complex. "Admiral, I'm detecting something strange on our long-range sensors. Ships approaching from Council space." "How many ships?" "Just 3, but they're different from normal Council." "Vessels. They're trying to look like merchant ships, but the engine signatures are wrong." Lee Hyun frowned. "Spies?" "That's what I think, too. They're heading for the edge of our territory, probably trying to gather intelligence." "Can we intercept them without being detected?" "Captain Kim Tae could do it. Her ship has the best stealth systems." Kim Tae nodded. "Give me 2 hours. I'll find out what they're up to." She disappeared in another flash of transport energy. Lee Hyun turned his attention back to the reports from Exile space. The numbers were disturbing. The Council was building up military forces along the borders of Free World's territory. This wasn't just patrol expansion. It looked like preparation for war. 2 hours later, Kim Tae returned with prisoners. 3 Council operatives, each from a different species. They looked nervous and defiant at the same time. "What did you learn?" Lee Hyun asked. "They're advanced scouts for something big," Kim Tae reported. "The Council is planning to eliminate all exile territories. They call it the final pacification." Lee Hyun questioned the prisoners himself. They were reluctant to talk at first, but the evidence was clear. The Council had decided that exile species were becoming too successful, too independent. The solution was complete extermination. When? He asked. 6 months, one of the prisoners finally admitted. The largest military fleet in galactic history. Every Council species will contribute ships and soldiers. How large? 50,000 vessels, maybe more. The number was staggering. Humanity's entire fleet was only 200 ships. Even with the Free Worlds Alliance, they would be vastly outnumbered. But Li Hyun wasn't worried about numbers. He was thinking about something else entirely. Dr. Park Nari, he called. How many dark matter weapons do we have in storage? Enough to equip the entire fleet with reserves for future construction. Dark matter weapons were Dr. Park Nari's latest breakthrough. They bypassed normal defenses by attacking the fabric of space itself. A single shot could destabilize an entire enemy fleet. And the reality manipulation technology? Still experimental but promising. We can create localized breakdowns in physics, make enemy systems uninhabitable. Li Hyun made his decision. Contact the Free Worlds Alliance. Tell them humanity accepts their invitation to join. But we're not just joining as members. What do you mean? Asked Kim Tae. We're joining as leaders. It's time to show the galaxy what freedom looks like. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Human ships traveled throughout exile territory, making contact with species that had lived in hiding for centuries. The response was overwhelming. Entire civilizations volunteered to join the alliance against the Council. Engineer Cho Yuna worked with alien engineers to upgrade their ships and weapons. Dr. Park Nari shared her knowledge freely, teaching other species how to build their own advanced technologies. Captain Kim Tae trained alien pilots in human combat tactics. Most importantly, they built something the galaxy had never seen before, a truly united alliance of free species, not ruled by the strongest, but organized by mutual cooperation and respect. The Free Worlds Alliance grew from dozens of species to hundreds. Small exile communities became major colonies. Hidden refuges became military bases. The dark territories transformed from a refuge into a fortress. 2 weeks before the Council's invasion was scheduled to begin, Supreme Admiral Li Hyun stood before the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. Representatives from 300 different worlds filled the Great Hall of Haven Station. For too long we have hidden in the shadows, he said. We accepted exile because we believed we had no choice. But exile has made us strong. Isolation has taught us cooperation. The Council's punishment has become our greatest gift. The crowd listened in complete silence. Species that had never worked together before were now united by a common cause. They are coming to destroy us because we prove their system is wrong, Li Hyun continued. We show that species can thrive without their rules. We demonstrate that freedom is stronger than control. He gestured to the display screens showing the approaching Council fleet. 50,000 ships, the largest military force ever assembled. Let them come, he said. We'll show them what exile species can accomplish when we work together. We'll teach them that freedom is worth fighting for. The hall erupted in cheers, clicks, roars, and sounds that human ears couldn't identify. But the message was clear in every language. The Free Worlds Alliance was ready for war. Ambassador Song Dae, now serving as humanity's liaison to the Alliance, sent one final message toward Council space. It would reach Speaker Vexathera just as her invasion fleet entered exile territory. You voted us out 5 years ago, the message said. You thought exile was a punishment. Thank you for teaching us we didn't need you. Now we're going to teach you that you need us. The invasion was about to begin, but the galaxy was about to learn that humanity hadn't spent 5 years hiding. They had spent 5 years preparing. The Council's invasion fleet was magnificent and terrible. 50,000 ships from dozens of species, armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Speaker Vexathera commanded from the massive dreadnought Eternal Order, confident that this would be the final solution to the exile problem. She was wrong. Captain Kim Tae struck first. Her stealth ship Ghost appeared behind the Council fleet's supply convoy, deep in what they thought was secure space. The dark matter weapons fired without warning. The effect was immediate and devastating. Council ships didn't just explode. They came apart at the atomic level as space itself turned against them. Worse, the weapons destabilized the jump gates. That connected Council territory. Report! Vexathera demanded as alarms filled her command center. 17 supply ships destroyed, her tactical officer replied. But that's not the worst part. The jump gates are failing. We're cut off from reinforcements. Vexathera stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How is that possible? Unknown. Technology. The weapons seemed to attack space-time itself. This was Dr. Park Nari's masterpiece. Years of research into the fundamental structure of reality had produced weapons that made Council technology look primitive, but the dark matter guns were just the beginning. On Haven Station, Supreme Admiral Lee Hyun watched the battle reports with satisfaction. The Council had expected to face desperate refugees. Instead, they were fighting an enemy that could strike anywhere in the galaxy. Phase 2, he ordered. Engineer Cho Yuna's voice came through the communications system. Liberation fleets are launching now. Across the galaxy, human ships appeared in Council territory. But they weren't attacking military targets. They were broadcasting a simple message to every inhabited world. Freedom is a choice, the message said. If you want to leave Council rule, we'll help you. Any species, any world, any individual. The Exile territories welcome all who seek liberty. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had lived under Council control for centuries saw their chance to escape. Entire worlds requested evacuation. Revolutionary movements that had been underground for generations came into the open. Captain Kim Tae led the largest liberation fleet to the Keth system, where the crystalline collective had been enslaved for 300 years. The crystal beings were forced to serve as living computers for the Council, their minds trapped in endless calculations. This is Captain Kim Tae of the Free Worlds Alliance, she broadcast to the planet below. We're here to offer you freedom. Any crystalline who wants to leave can board our ships. The response was like nothing she had ever seen. Millions of crystal beings rose from their computational chambers, their bodies singing with harmonics of joy and hope. They had been waiting centuries for someone to offer them a choice. The Council tried to stop the evacuations, but they faced a new problem. Their own member species were questioning the war. Why were they fighting to destroy civilizations that just wanted to be left alone? Dr. Park Nari unleashed the reality manipulation technology. Council worlds began experiencing physics storms, areas where the laws of nature stopped working properly. Gravity reversed. Time moved backwards. Energy became solid. It's not permanent, she explained to Lee Hyun, but it makes their systems uninhabitable until they agree to stop the invasion. The psychological effect was devastating. Council species had always believed their technology could solve any problem. Now they faced an enemy that could break the rules of reality itself. Speaker Vexathera tried to maintain control, but her fleet was falling apart. Ships were defecting to join the Free Worlds Alliance. Supply lines were cut. Jump gates were unstable. Worst of all, her own crew was starting to ask questions. "Why are we doing this?" asked her second-in-command. "The exile species aren't threatening us. They just want to be left alone." "Because they prove our system is flawed," Vexathera replied angrily. "If species can thrive without Council rule, others will want to leave too. Maybe they should be allowed to leave. It was treason." But Vexathera could see the same thought in the eyes of her other officers. The war was becoming unpopular even among those fighting it. Ambassador Song Dae chose that moment to make contact. His face appeared on screens throughout. "The Council Fleet. Speaker Vexthara," he said calmly. "I have an offer for you." "We don't negotiate with exiles," she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then don't think of us as exiles. Think of us as equals. We're willing to stop this war, but only on our terms." "What terms?" "Simple. The Council recognizes the independence of all exile territories. Any species that wants to leave Council space can do so freely. The Free Worlds Alliance becomes an equal partner in galactic affairs, not a subject to be ruled." Vexthara laughed bitterly. "Impossible. The Council will never accept equals." "Then the Council will fall," Songday replied. "Look around you. Your fleet is disintegrating. Your member species are questioning your authority. Your technology is obsolete. How long do you think you can maintain control?" The truth was painful, but undeniable. The Council's power had always depended on the belief that they were superior to other species. The Free Worlds Alliance had shattered that belief. "We have 50,000 ships," Vexthara said weakly. "We have 300 species united by choice instead of fear," Songday countered. "We have technology you can't understand. Most importantly, we have something you've never had, the moral authority that comes from fighting for freedom instead of control." The final blow came when the Battle of the Core Worlds began. Li Hyun's combined fleet jumped directly into the heart of Council space, appearing around their capital worlds without warning. But they didn't attack. Instead, they broadcast a message to every Council citizen. "We came to protect the exile." "Species," Li Hyun announced. "But we found something else. We found that freedom is contagious. Species throughout the galaxy want what we have, the right to choose their own destiny." The message included recordings from the liberated worlds, crystal beings singing in harmony as they left their computational prisons, gas cloud species forming new art patterns as they escaped forced labor, aquatic peoples dancing in the waters of their new homes. Council citizens watched in amazement. They had been told that exile meant suffering and death. Instead, they saw joy and hope and beauty. Revolutions began on dozens of Council worlds, not violent overthrows, but peaceful declarations of independence. Entire systems voted to leave Council space and join the Free Worlds Alliance. Speaker Vexthara realized that she had lost not just the war, but the entire basis of Council power. Species no longer believed they needed to be ruled. "What do you want?" she asked Songday in a private communication. "We want you to understand what we learned 5 years ago," he replied. "Being voted out was the best thing that ever happened to us. Maybe it's time for the Council to learn the same lesson. You want us to exile ourselves? We want you to choose freedom. The Council can continue to exist, but only as an equal partner with other civilizations. No more ruling, no more forced membership, no more threatening species that choose to leave." It took 3 more weeks, but eventually the fighting stopped, not because one side won, but because the war itself became pointless. Too many Council species had chosen to leave. Too many Council citizens had seen the alternative. The old Galactic Council dissolved itself in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. In its place, representatives from hundreds of species gathered to form something new: the Federation of Free Worlds. Speaker Vexthara stood before the assembly, no longer a ruler, but an elected representative of those who chose to maintain their traditional alliance. "We were wrong," she admitted. "We thought order required control. We believed diversity meant chaos. We feared that giving species choices would lead to conflict." She gestured to the peaceful assembly around her. "Instead, we see cooperation. Species working together by choice are stronger than species forced together by law. The exile vote 5 years ago wasn't the end of galactic civilization. It was the beginning of something better." Supreme Admiral Li Hyun watched from his place. In the human delegation, humanity had come far from the day they were voted out of the galaxy. They had found something better than acceptance. They had found purpose. "The galaxy voted for our exile," he said in his closing speech. "We voted for revolution. Today, freedom wins." But even as they celebrated, long-range sensors detected something troubling. Signals from beyond the galactic edge. Other galaxies, other civilizations, some of them moving this way. The real test was still coming. The celebration lasted exactly 3 days. Then Dr. Park Nari's deep space sensors detected something that changed everything. "Admiral," she called urgently from her laboratory, "you need to see this immediately." Supreme Admiral Lee Hyun arrived, to find her staring at readings that made no sense. The sensors showed massive objects moving between galaxies, heading toward their local cluster. "How massive?" he asked. "Each one is bigger than our entire solar system, and there are thousands of them." The objects weren't natural. They moved in formation, followed precise courses, and emitted energy signatures unlike anything in the database. Most disturbing of all, they had destroyed 3 galaxies on their way here. "Destroyed how?" Lee Hyun asked. "Completely consumed. Stars, planets, even the dark matter. Nothing left but empty space." Captain Kim Tae arrived with more bad news. Her long-range scouts had made contact with refugee ships fleeing from the advancing force. The survivors' stories were terrifying. "They call themselves the Devourers," she reported. "They consume entire civilizations to fuel their expansion. They've been moving through the universe for millions of years, destroying everything in their path." "How long until they reach us?" 6 months at their current speed." Lee Hyun felt a familiar sensation. Once again, humanity faced an impossible enemy with an impossible deadline. But this time, they weren't alone. "Call an emergency session of the Federation," he ordered. "Every species, every world, we need to prepare for war." The Federation Assembly had never seen anything like it. Representatives from 800 species gathered in the Great Hall of Haven Station. Former enemies sat beside former allies, united by the threat of complete extinction. Speaker Vexathara, now serving as Minister of Defense, presented the intelligence reports. The Devourers had consumed 47 galaxies. No civilization had ever survived their advance. "How do they fight?" asked one representative. "They don't fight," Vexathara replied grimly. "They simply absorb everything. Matter, energy, even life itself becomes part of their collective mass." "What about their technology?" "Unknown. They don't use ships or weapons as we understand them. They seem to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe directly." Engineer Cho Yuna raised her hand. "What if we evacuate? Find somewhere else to go?" "Where?" asked Dr. Park Nari. "They're moving through the entire local cluster. There's nowhere to run." The hall fell silent. Every species represented here had faced extinction before. The Council had threatened them with exile or destruction. The recent war had tested their unity, but this was different. This was the end of everything. Then Lee Hyun stood up. "The Council would have tried to negotiate or hide," he said calmly. "The old way of thinking was to accept limitations, to work within the system, to hope someone else would solve the problem." He looked around the hall at hundreds of different faces, each representing a species that had chosen freedom over security. "But we're not the Council. We're the Federation of Free Worlds. We don't accept limitations. We make our own solutions." "What are you proposing?" asked Vexathara. "We fight." The reaction was immediate. Voices rose in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. It was impossible. No one had ever defeated the Devourers. They were too powerful, too advanced, too alien to understand or resist. Lee Hyun waited for the noise to die down, then continued. 5 years ago, the galaxy voted to exile humanity. Everyone said we would die in the dark territories. We proved them wrong. 6 months ago, the Council sent 50,000 ships to destroy us. Everyone said we couldn't resist the largest fleet in galactic history. We proved them wrong. Now everyone says we can't fight the Devourers. I think it's time to prove them wrong again. Captain Kim Tae was the first to speak up. What do you have in mind? Dr. Park Nari, how many reality manipulation weapons can we build in 6 months? With the full resources of the Federation? Maybe 100. But Admiral, we've never tested them against anything like this. Then we'll test them in battle. Cho Yuna, how many ships can we build? 10,000 if every shipyard in the Federation works around the clock. Do it. But don't build normal ships. Build something new, something designed specifically to fight an enemy that consumes matter and energy. What would that look like, Lee? Hyun smiled grimly. Ships that can exist in multiple dimensions. Weapons that attack from outside normal space-time. Defenses that turn the enemy's consumption against them. The plan that emerged over the following weeks was unlike anything ever attempted. The Federation would build a fleet of ships that barely existed in normal reality. They would use Dr. Park Nari's quantum manipulation technology to phase in and out of dimensions, making them impossible to absorb. The weapons were even more radical. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers, they would trap them in recursive loops of space-time, force them to consume themselves, or exile them to pocket dimensions where they could feast on nothing but emptiness. Ambassador Song Dae coordinated the diplomatic effort. Species that had never worked together before shared their most advanced technologies. The crystal beings provided computational power. The energy species offered insight into non-physical existence. The aquatic peoples contributed fluid dynamics for multi-dimensional navigation. Most importantly, they had something the Devourers had never encountered before, a civilization that refused to accept defeat. Every species they've absorbed was fighting alone, explained Dr. Park Nari during one planning session. Even their most advanced civilizations were limited by their own perspectives. But we have hundreds of different ways of thinking, hundreds of different approaches to the same problem. Will that be enough? Asked Vexithara. It has to be, replied Lee Hyun, because the alternative is extinction. 4 months into the preparation, the Devourers' advanced scouts reached the outer edge of Federation space. The contact was brief but educational. The scouts were destroyed by quantum weapons, but not before transmitting data about Federation defenses. They're adapting, reported Kim Tae after analyzing the encounter. Whatever they learned, they're sharing it with the main force. Good, said Lee Hyun. Let them adapt to our first wave of weapons. They won't be ready for what comes next. The final battle began at the edge of the galaxy. The Devourer fleet was beyond imagination. Living ships the size of planets, weapons that turned stars into ammunition, defenses that absorbed entire solar systems. But the Federation fleet was something new in the universe. Ships that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Weapons that fired from parallel realities. Shields that redirected attacks to alternate timelines. The battle raged for 17 days. Reality itself became a battlefield as the two forces fought with technologies that rewrote the laws of physics. Entire star systems were created and destroyed as weapons misfired or succeeded beyond expectations. Dr. Park Nari's masterpiece was the Paradox Bomb, a weapon that trapped the enemy in an endless loop of cause and effect. Devourers found themselves consuming their own consumption, growing smaller with each bite. Captain Kim Tae led a strike force into the heart of the enemy formation, using dimension-shifting tactics to appear inside their defenses. Her ships were, like ghosts, untouchable and unstoppable. Engineer Cho Yuna's creation was the Mirror Fleet, ships that reflected the Devourer's own technology back at them. Every attempt to absorb Federation vessels resulted in the Devourers consuming themselves instead. The turning point came when the Federation discovered the Devourer's weakness, They had consumed so many civilizations that they had lost their original identity. They were powerful, but hollow, a shell of accumulated abilities without purpose or direction. They're not evil, realized Dr. Park Nari during the battle. They're lost. They've been consuming others for so long that they've forgotten what they originally were. Li Hyun made a command decision that shocked everyone. Instead of destroying the remaining devourers, he offered them something they had never encountered before: a choice. You can continue consuming and remain empty, he broadcast to the enemy fleet, or you can join us and remember what it means to create instead of destroy. The response was slow and uncertain. The devourers had been destroyers for so long that the concept of cooperation was alien to them. But gradually, some began to respond. "We remember," came the first communication. "Before the hunger, before the emptiness, we were builders." The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. The devourers who chose cooperation were helped to rediscover their original nature. They became the Federation's most dedicated members, using their vast power to create instead of consume. Those who couldn't abandon their destructive nature were exiled to empty dimensions where they could feed on nothing but void until they chose to change. A year later, Li Hyun stood on the observation deck of the new Federation headquarters. Outside, ships from 1,000 species worked together on projects that spanned multiple galaxies. Former devourers used their reality-shaping abilities to build habitats in dimensions that had never existed before. Song Dae joined him at the window. Hard to believe it all started with an exile vote. "The galaxy voted us out," Li Hyun reflected. "Best thing that ever happened to us." And to everyone else, it seems. Through the window, they could see exploration fleets preparing for journeys to other galactic clusters.